Margaret Martin, a young resident of Kingston in Luzerne County, Pennsylvania, resided there until her untimely demise at the age of 19. In 1937, she successfully completed her education at Kingston High School and subsequently pursued secretarial skills by enrolling in courses at Wilkes-Barre Business College. Margaret's dedication and hard work led to her graduation with honors in early December 1938, marking a significant achievement in her academic journey. Among her peers, Margaret was known as a shy yet diligent individual, with a warm and friendly demeanor that earned her numerous friendships. Betty Hopkins, a former classmate, fondly described her in this manner. Her parents held her in high regard, considering her to be a paragon of virtue and referring to her as a living saint. Margaret was deeply committed to her Catholic faith, demonstrating a strong devotion to her religious beliefs. John Martin, Margaret's father, held the position of a local foreman and was also involved in local politics, while Margaret herself was the eldest among her three siblings, highlighting her role as an older sister within the family unit. On the fateful day of December 17, 1938, Margaret Martin received a call from an individual who introduced himself as someone establishing an insurance company and expressed a need for a secretary. Intriguingly, he claimed to have heard about Martin through her association with Wilkes-Barre Business College. Intrigued by the opportunity, Martin agreed to meet the man at Kingston Corners, conveniently located near her residence. As evening fell, it became evident that Martin had not returned home from the purported job interview, and concerns about her well-being began to arise. Witnesses came forward, attesting to the fact that they had observed Martin engaging in a brief conversation with a man before entering a brown Plymouth or black sedan. Tragically, this marked the last sighting of her alive. Despite their efforts, the witnesses could only provide hazy descriptions of the man, describing him as a suave, neat, sandy-haired young man, while the license plate of the vehicle remained unidentified. The man appeared to be between 25 and 30 years old, and slightly overweight. Martin's concerned friends and family promptly reported her disappearance to the authorities and initiated a search, although the circumstances made it challenging to raise public awareness as the local newspapers were currently on strike. According to a 1999 article in the Times Leader, Margaret Martin endured unimaginable torment and met a tragic end in a sawmill nestled amidst the mountains, approximately 15 miles away from the creek where her lifeless body was eventually discovered. Police investigations yielded theories suggesting that the killer had intended to dismember Martin's body and incinerate it in the mill's firebox. However, their gruesome efforts were interrupted when the mill's owner, James Kedd, mistakenly perceived the perpetrator as a mere trespasser and fired a warning shot in their direction, prompting them to flee the scene in fear. The killer proceeded to transport Martin's body to a nearby point close to the creek, covering a final distance of 75 yards, before abandoning her there. Initially, authorities suspected that Martin's disappearance might be linked to a nefarious sex slavery ring. However, on December 21, 1938, her lifeless body was discovered in the dense wilderness of Northmoreland Township, Wyoming County, approximately 25 miles away from her home. It was a young trapper named Anthony Rezakowski, aged 19, who stumbled upon a large burlap bag partially submerged in 2 feet of water within a creek, catching his attention. As he investigated further, he made the horrifying realization that the bag contained the mutilated remains of a young woman, devoid of clothing. This tragic discovery confirmed the identity of the victim as Margaret Martin. By the time her body was found, she had been deceased for at least 24 hours, and had it not been for Rezakowski's intervention, her remains might have gone unnoticed for several years. Examinations of Martin's body revealed evidence of brutal beatings, potentially inflicted by a rock, and signs of strangulation. Bruises adorned her throat and body, while knife wounds marred her stomach and thigh, indicative of the suffering she had endured. The subsequent autopsy determined that the cause of her death was indeed strangulation, further noting that she had endured the vile abuse of a depraved individual. Following the distressing discovery of Margaret Martin's lifeless body, a team of approximately 75 state troopers diligently scoured the area, hoping to unearth vital clues that could shed light on her tragic fate. Regrettably, no tire tracks were detected near the location where her remains were found, and the burlap bag, while significant, failed to provide any leads regarding potential suspects. Notably, charred fabric resembling the clothing Martin was wearing before her disappearance was uncovered at an abandoned sawmill near Kingston, as reported by the Citizen's Voice. However, conflicting reports from the Kane Republican suggested that this particular cloth did not originate from the site. Additionally, an unrelated incident involving discarded clothing thrown from a vehicle near Wilkes-Barre was investigated but proved unrelated to Martin's murder. On December 22, the Scranton Tribune expressed optimism, predicting that Martin's killer would be apprehended within the following 24 hours. A significant number of mourners, numbering in the hundreds, gathered at St. Ignatius Church in Kingston on December 24 to bid farewell to Margaret Martin during her solemn funeral proceedings. Attending the event incognito were plainclothes police officers, keen on identifying any suspicious individuals amidst the attendees. The local community put forth various theories regarding the potential identity of Martin's murderer. Speculations ranged from a mortician residing in Wyoming County to the son of a prominent businessman who swiftly departed the area after the crime. An assistant pastor from the vicinity, a teacher affiliated with Wilkes-Barre Business College, and a local teenager harboring feelings for Martin were also among the individuals suspected by the community. Furthermore, two men who had previously attempted to assault a 16-year-old girl from Hanover Township, Luzerne County, found themselves under investigation. Some investigators believed that due to the killer's intimate familiarity with the region's terrain, the perpetrator must have been a local resident. However, more recent hypotheses propose the involvement of a non-local serial killer, challenging previous assumptions regarding the case. On December 28, 1938, Pennsylvania State Senator Leo C. Mundy pledged to introduce a bill at the upcoming state legislature that aimed to enforce stricter penalties for sex crimes, including capital punishment, as well as the mandatory registration of all sex offenders. This proposed legislation was in direct response to the tragic murder of Margaret Martin. Mundy intended for physicians, welfare workers, and social service professionals to be obligated to report individuals displaying inclinations toward such offenses. As the year 1939 commenced, most of the leads and clues related to Martin's murder had proven unfruitful in identifying the culprit. Despite an ongoing manhunt, the authorities had yet to uncover substantial new information by February of that year. However, in June 1939, some additional clues emerged, albeit without leading to the identification of the killer. Numerous suspects underwent investigation following Martin's untimely demise, yet the true perpetrator remained elusive and unidentified. In September 1942, Orban Taylor from New York City confessed to Martin's murder. However, after an extensive 10-hour investigation, his confession was ultimately proven false. Consequently, Taylor was not charged with that particular crime, although he did confess to several other offenses. By 1948, a decade after Martin's murder, the case continued to stand as one of the few prominent unsolved homicides in Pennsylvania. In 1999, Peter Paul Olszewski Jr., who served as the Luzerne County District Attorney at the time, expressed the opinion that even with modern advancements in criminal investigation techniques and forensic sciences, it was highly unlikely that the identity of Martin's killer would ever be discovered. It is presumed that the perpetrator has long since passed away, rendering resolution elusive.